Hi, I'm Noah Grigni. I'm the illustrator of It Feels Good to Be Yourself, a book about gender identity written by Teresa Thorne, which came out from Henry Holt in June. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this book and what it means to me. I'm going to try to keep it brief, but it's hard because this book means so much to me and there's so much that I'd like to say. So I made all the art in this book using ink, watercolor, and gouache. So ink and watercolor you're probably familiar with. Gouache is a paint that's similar to watercolor but a little bit thicker and a little bit more opaque. So the original paintings are all done with a brush on cold pressed watercolor paper. Even the very fine lines are done with a small brush. They're not done with pen. And the original art is about twice the size that it appears printed in the book. So you can imagine that I was making a lot of big, colorful paintings for this, which is really what I love to be doing. This book, for me, it felt like the first time that I was able to put my art into the world the way I want it to be seen, in full color, celebrating values that align with my own, delivering a message of inclusivity, and sort of envisioning the world that I would like to live in and that I'd like my kids to grow up in someday. I actually illustrated this book while I was a senior at Lesley University in Boston, studying illustration. So it was nice to be able to have that community of studio space and illustration professors and other art students around me to support me while I was doing this. It took about 6 months to illustrate the book, from the first stage of receiving the script from Teresa to drawing the thumbnails and sketches and eventually doing finished paintings and fine-tuning those. I worked alongside my wonderful editor Kate at Macmillan, who's the person who hired me for this project, and my wonderful art director Liz, and I'm just really grateful to both of them for supporting me and for helping me illustrate my first picture book. So this book is really a tool for kids and parents to talk about gender identity. It includes a lot of words. It includes language which is very simple and accessible, but it includes some words which I didn't know as a child, such as transgender, cisgender, non-binary. I am a non-binary trans boy. I actually came out as trans when I was 14 at my public high school in Georgia, and I was the first student at my high school to medically and legally transition with the support of my parents. So for me, I didn't learn these words until I was taken to a therapist because I was having gender problems. And when I understood what it meant to be trans, when I was able to understand that gender and sex are separate and that gender doesn't always align with sex, for me, it really clicked that that was me. And I just know that if I had had access to this language as a child, I would have saved myself a lot of trouble, a lot of pain. So I'm really happy to see books like this coming into the world. If I could go back and give a book to my former self, this is the book that I would give them. So transitioning in high school for me came with a lot of bullying, a lot of sort of misguided fear from other kids, and parents, and teachers, and a lot of explaining things to people, explaining words which people didn't necessarily know, which isn't their fault because this is Georgia, and this was 10 years ago. And I'm just really happy to see this language becoming more normalized and becoming a part of every person's vocabulary, because every person has a gender identity, whether you're cis or trans or anything in between or anything else or anything that you would like to define on your own terms. So I think it's really important to teach kids these words in an open-ended, accessible, and non-prescriptive way, which I think Teresa does really well. So I want to talk about this spread because to me it's the most important spread in the book. If you see these two portraits here of these two people in the middle of the gazebo are actually portraits of my friend Monty and Kiwan. So Monty and Kiwan, Monte Carlo, Montel Newton, and Kiwan Benson were pillars in Atlanta's queer community. They were artists and organizers who made a huge impact on my community here. And Monty specifically was a very dear friend to me who really guided me as an artist and who really inspired me to devote myself to art and to advocating for my community through art, to creating spaces for queer artists to thrive. Monty is someone who continues to inspire me and just someone who I feel really lucky to have known. So while I was illustrating this book, when I got the news that they had both passed away, I just felt really devastated, and I wanted to do something, whatever small thing that I can, to commemorate them. Kiwan isn't someone who I knew well. I only met him once, but he seemed very sweet and kind. I don't really feel like I can talk about him, but I just wanted to honor these two amazing, talented, kind, and just special people who will live on forever in our hearts and in the pages of this book. Well, I guess that's about it. This book means a lot to me. I hope you like it. Remember to be yourself. Thanks for watching. And thank you for supporting our shelves.